I don't think profit is an end in itself. I think too many organizations, and those are not our clients, but tend to see profit as the end road. And so for us, we work best with people who see profit as the fuel to something bigger.
Yeah. And I think that's important for people to hear, though, that you can have a purpose-driven, profitable business. You know, we did our mastermind as a purposeful mastermind and then went, well, why wouldn't we be profitable too? You know, and
that's right. And usually those organizations are more profitable because their ability to attract and retain talent is higher. Their customer loyalty is through the roof. And so usually mission-driven companies tend to be more successful than those that are not. So I don't think you have to choose between purpose and profit. They actually go hand in hand in my mind.
Most leaders spend their entire careers trying to fit into the mold. But today we're going to talk to a leader who didn't want to fit in the mold. She didn't fit in the mold. And so she just redesigned the entire factory. Today we have Claire Angelle, the founder and CEO of Olivia Agency, a purpose-driven communications firm based in Atlanta. And Claire, you didn't come across this, journey into entrepreneurship normally. You were in navigated high stakes diplomacy, international trade. Then you went to work for the city of Atlanta and worked on what's encouraging business and growth and trade there. Let's start there. And actually, let's start with a personal story, if you don't mind. Let's talk about what happened when you were almost. Well, we won't say your age, but you're an adult and you found out that you were autistic. Why don't we start there? Let's start with that personal story of what that means and what that looks like for you.
Sure. Well, I think my journey is certainly not linear. I feel like it's often the case in life where, we take different turns, and they're not necessarily wrong turns, but they just lead us to our path. And that, ASD diagnosis a couple of years ago, in my 40s, I can say it, was unexpected. And it came about navigating that diagnosis with my son. Actually, the funny story is that in the intake appointment with the psychologist for my son, I was minimizing a lot of his autistic trait because for me they were normal, up until the point where she told me, it's genetic. Staring at me, straight in the eyes, and I got the hint, which is not our strong suit as autistic people, but it was pretty loud and clear, and so it led me to the rabbit hole of looking for my own diagnosis and having answers. So it allowed me to look back though, and looking at my life experience, especially childhood. And while I was very surprised when she kind of implied that, looking back, there certainly was sign, and it helped me look at my childhood in a whole different way. And it was incredibly empowering. So I think knowledge is power, and I certainly don't regret having answers. And now, how fitting as we are recording this interview on Autistic Awareness Month.
That's right. Yeah. So have you changed anything? And I guess the other follow-up was that, did you have to find your own counselor or psychiatrist, or were you able to share one with your son?
No, there's no treatment per se for autism.
Right.
It's a brain wiring. So I think that I did change a few things. It made me realize that certain things around, I've always been very disturbed with loud noises, and have always been very routine prone and writing lists, for everything in my life. And so it helped me understand me better and also accommodate myself better. Like now I'm much more conscious, for example, if I have a lot of meetings, in-person meeting in public places, I'm not going to do a dinner, in a public place in the evening, because I know I will probably be overwhelmed by the end of the day of, dealing with that background noise, little accommodation like this that is making life a little easier. I don't judge myself and give myself much more grace when I eat the same meal 5 days in a row, type of thing. I love my routine and I embrace it fully now. So it's more, I've learned to be kinder with myself at the end of the day. So that's been the biggest change.
I think that's beautiful, to be kinder with ourselves. We could all probably take that lesson from here. And we've gotten to know you in our group, Impact Global. You're a wonderful participant, wise. And from that wisdom, it's really because your creative background, like you said, it's not a straight path that you've taken. And you went, and if everybody hasn't noticed already, you've come from France to Atlanta, a different drawl and a different accent for sure. And yours is far more beautiful than the Atlanta Southern drawl, in my opinion. And I can't pronounce anything, quite like you do. So you can correct me if I say it incorrectly. But you went from French Foreign Legion to working in the government in Atlanta. Or was it Georgia? Atlanta, right?
Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, correct.
And that transition then to your own. How did you go from, I'm going to be an employee and a government employee to boot, right, to running your own company, to becoming an entrepreneur? What does that journey look like for you?
Well, first, it was not intentional. I know so many fellow entrepreneurs, because, we're part of those groups, that we have the pleasure of being part of, people who, from a young age, knew they wanted to build something from the ground up. That was certainly not my story. I've always loved storytelling. That has always been, I think I created my first magazine. I'm using the term very loosely. I think I was like 11 or 12 years old. It was called La Hulotte, which is a species of owl. And I would grab the different articles from, National Geographic and a few subscriptions I had, and I would handwrite, that was in the early 90s. 3 copies that I would sell to neighbors. So there was a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit right there that I, buried in there. But I love telling stories, writing. The written world has always been appealing to me. And so I started my career with the French Foreign Service, and I was press and communication officer. So there was already that communication storytelling angle to my career, but I was working at a high-stake diplomatic level and was posted in Atlanta. And that's how I came to the U.S. in 2007, overseeing the U.S. Southeast. So I think we had like 6 states to improve the image of France in the U.S. Southeast, which was interesting because I was coming in 2007, post-Iraq War conflict, Freedom Fry movement, and so we certainly had our work cut out for us. Right. So I arrived in Atlanta and worked and met wonderful people, including the new mayor of Atlanta at the time, who offered me a chance to, again, a little bit of entrepreneurship spirit there, but a new office within this city government, the International Affairs office, which really was tasked to help Atlanta-based companies with their exporting activities and being more globally minded to open new opportunities for growth, and then attracting foreign direct investment to the city of Atlanta, and so becoming a true global city. So I staffed the office, led the vision. So there was this kind of entrepreneurial spirit, but working in government feels so safe that, starting anything on my own was never really crossed my path. And so I'm really an entrepreneur, by not by design, but by mistake, in the sense that after the mayor of Atlanta finished his second term and was term limited, I wanted to see if the grass was greener on the other side, and actually got a big media job in New York. And I remember starting, my husband moved, my 15-month-old moved at the time. And I remember starting on January 2nd, 2018. And on February 15th, the CEO stepped down and we all got laid off. I was like, okay, I don't know if corporate America is the path I had envisioned. And so I remember overnight creating an LLC in the state of New York and, starting offering my services for freelance, thinking, that I would do that until I find my next opportunity. And by April 3rd, I had almost recouped 75% of my lost income doing freelance. And so I was like, maybe I should not look for a new job. Maybe I should have a website and a business card and a business plan of some sort and kind of write this, whatever that is. And so that's how Olivia was born, certainly out of necessity and not by a well thought out business plan of any kind.
I love it. So when you started that in Atlanta, they were not really focused on international trade or diplomacy or any of that. And how much money, how much revenue did you generate and grow in that job itself? What did that look like? You went from where did you go?
Right. I mean, it was a group effort. It was not just the city of Atlanta. We worked really closely with the governor's office, the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. So I certainly won't take the credit, but we really worked around. We work also with great organizations like the Brookings Institution to really, beef up, what does an export program at the city level, at the state level look like? Increasing export allows company to be more resilient to economic downturn because they diversify their client pool and they tend to pay higher wages, which was a big appeal to the city. If I recall, that was almost a decade ago, but we were able in my tenure to attract 17 foreign direct investment, which represent an investment in the billion of dollars and job creation. So it was quite successful to have an intentional strategy around FDI attraction.
Yeah, I know you don't want to take credit for it, but there's a direct reason I asked is because you're drawing and bringing that in is a direct correlation to you drawing and bringing in 75% of your own income in just a couple of months. So you had it in you. You had it in your core to be able to be successful. And so I think that that's an important thing to bring on that, you did that. And, you've gone from the corporate government world to the corporate world that didn't work out. It was temporary to, and then now you're on your own. So what does it mean, Olivia? What are you looking to do? What's your agency's methodology? Who do you attract? Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now today and who you serve.
So as I mentioned, very humble beginnings with no clear vision, not even a mission statement. It became very clear, though, that there was such thing as bad money, where I realized not every project felt fulfilling, and that if I was going to have ownership of my destiny by being the leader of my organization, I had agency to kind of create that vision. And so I made the decision quite early on to work in the mission space. And so really serving people who are either nonprofit or for-profit, but with a higher purpose. And so to this day, this is the clientele we serve. And we are very much, it was hard initially when I freelanced, I had this two hats, right? I had the international affairs hat, and I also had the communication PR hat from, my time as press and communication officer. And part of my role at the City of Atlanta was also to increase the visibility of the City of Atlanta on the global stage. So there was a fair amount of media, speaking engagement. And so it's interesting because if I had created a business plan, I think I would have naturally gravitated to the international affairs component. And when I just reach out to people and say, hey, this is what happened. I came from a place of humility. I was like, hey, I lost my job. My skill set. If you have any work, I'm your person. And I had a very great community that sent me project, and very fast, the PR side became very dominant in the type of project I was doing. And so I would have totally written the wrong business plan. I let the market kind of dictate what they wanted from me, and it emerged on its own. And so today we do PR. which is really three things. We help increase our clients' visibility through media, speaking, and award opportunities, and earned media. We don't do sponsorship pay to play. We very much stay in our space of earned media and PR. And so we work with a wide array of clients that all deal with, high stake topics. Like we work with a nonprofit that fights against the opioid crisis. We work around prison reform. We work around clean tech, health, wellness, immigration, veteran workforce development. So it's quite varied in terms of topics, but they all have that thread that they are in the business of addressing a societal or environmental challenge of some sort.
Is there a topic or an organization, and you don't have to be specific, but is there something that you would say, I don't believe in it enough that I can't support it in my own work? Because obviously it's a wide gambit of who you're serving right now, but I assume there are some that you would just say, yeah, that's not my thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think because now our reputation in the, doing well by doing good has gotten some traction, we've had the situation where we were approached by several people who want to kind of benefit from that feel-good image, and they're not in the impact space. And it felt slightly manipulative almost. It's kind of like, borrowing our reputation for their not so purpose-driven mission. And so I think that, and so we've had to turn people down. We're very much strict on who we serve, and the team feels very much empowered by being mission driven, working with people that wake up every day and feel, passionate about tackling a real problem. And so we wouldn't want to change that culture either. So yes, we're very much staying in our lane, and now we're known for it, which has the double advantage of being a referral system in itself.
Mm-hmm. I think it's great. And the way you can craft and tell stories around the uniqueness of each one of those. And, I think that it's also, a skill set that many don't have. And your team does a fabulous job with that. What's the growth pattern look like? Where do you want to go now? Who do you want to serve? What would be an ideal client today for you?
I mean, again, a client, it can be 501c3, it can be a for-profit organization, but we serve people who have a higher degree of communication that selling a product or service, a membership. That's only part of the PR strategy, don't get me wrong. Profit for a company is fuel to the higher mission. With that fuel, there's no impact. So a lot of what we do at the end ends up boosting sales, membership, and all that. But we really thrive when we work with people that are more interested in tackling the issue. And it also serves them in their thought leadership, because now we have established relationship with reporters that they know we're not going to bring them a thought leader that is just going to be interested in talking about their organization and, trying to sell them something. They are coming from a place of wanting to bring value to their reader, the listener, and really educating them on something of import. And so it's this virtuous circle that we work with people who believe in their mission and in bringing it to the world.
And if people are listening, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
If people are listening and they go, oh, my mission isn't aligned, or I'm too small, or I'm too big, or whatever, what would you tell them?
I think that I get that question often, where people say, am I too early or for PR? I would say that PR increases visibility. So you have to have processes in place to handle scale, being for nonprofit or for profit, for that matter of fact. So I would say that, you need, and then you're going to have a spotlight on your brand. And so you need to have certain things in place before you entertain PR. You need to have processes to scale. You need to have a decent website, a branding identity, and a clear value proposition, because otherwise you're going to be in front of a reporter and not being able to articulate properly that value proposition. So I would discourage people to do PR before they have those in place. But after that, it's not a question of size. I think there's a pragmatic, question of resources, but people can do PR in-house as well. It doesn't, a lot of companies before they went to, a PR company dabble in getting their own coverage to get their foot in the door. And that's, and a lot of people are quite successful in getting a couple of coverage. And then they realize, okay, it's actually bringing a lot of attention. We should double down, and we don't have the skill set, the bandwidth to do it. So then we're going to externalize that function. And so most of our clients have kind of dabbled into PR, got a couple of coverage, and they're like, oh, it works. Let us externalize that. And then there is the people who sunset, where they've gotten so big and so successful that then they bring it back in house with someone who can do that full time. So, I consider us, most PR companies tend to be in that middle sweet spot where our clients have grown enough to justify externalizing that function and not too big that they are bringing it back in.
Got it. And when you say earned media, can you just describe that a little bit more and what that means?
Right. So there, a lot has changed in the media landscape, where different outlets, because advertisement revenue was down, created several products where people can pay to be placed in their publication. And it's usually in a different part of the website. And so anybody can technically do that, but it doesn't have, for example, Forbes has Forbes Business Council. Fast Company has a similar product. And so we're not on the speaking front, there are sponsored content where you can pay to be on stage. Usually that's your speaker that's going to give you a 40-slide death by PowerPoint, so you can recognize the sponsored, speaker a mile away if you're in the space. But all joke aside, we're working the earned media. So our clients are not paying to be, interviewed by New York Times, Time Magazine. They have been pitched on a story and are interviewed by a journalist who's going to write about them. And that journalist is not going to receive compensation for that. They're receiving compensation from their, outlet who pays them. But that's the big difference. And I think that, people do PR for increased visibility and to create trust. And so I think that the paid thought leadership kind of defeats the purpose, because, the media kind of acts like a vetting process. If you read about an organization in a trustworthy media outlet, you're like, oh, okay, like that journalist did, they checked their sources, they did their homework. So it creates that trusting relationship with the subject and the organization they cover. If you end up, if you pay for that, then the trust is eroded, and it's so we're very much on the earned media side of thing, where our client do not pay the outlet to be featured in it.
I think that you just nailed it on the head. And we're in a trust recession right now. And so if you can magnify that by showing, hey, this was earned. We didn't just buy our way onto, like you said, the New York Times bestseller list or whatever it may be, then that's just a deeper level of trust and authenticity for these businesses that you're working with. With that, how much of your work is actually doing research, reach out, and building relationships with these people versus actually just crafting the message or writing, which is what you said your superpower is?
Right. I mean, it's both. As I grow the team, I do less content development and more relationship building. But I'm still on the strategic level. I love the ideation work where, especially for big, national publication, you have to find the right hook, right? You have your portfolio of clients in the back of your mind and what they're working, and you have to kind of always scan the headlines and what's hot, quote unquote, and say, how can I position my client in that conversation? And a lot of those big national publication is very opportunistic. I remember we had a client of ours who worked, has a small, medium-sized company. I think they have 35 employees in Atlanta, and they do crafting, do-it-yourself cards. It's all about spreading kindness and creativity and building communities. And so we did work with Parent Magazine and crafts and arts and those type of publication. And then we came to learn that 100% of their products were manufactured in China, and we got a lead from Time Magazine that they were trying to assess the impact of the new tariff on small and medium-sized companies across the country. And so we pitched that client who got in Time Magazine, which prior to that situation might not have been a fit for a time. And so it's this ongoing, scanning of the news and, trying to position your client in the best possible light so that they get those opportunities. But the relationship component is, to answer your question more straightforward, is the bulk. And thankfully so, because I think with the rise of AI, if the bulk was, content development, we would be in trouble. And that's why I kind of smile when people ask me about the future of our industry in PR. And so many of our peers are concerned. And I'm like, no, it's literally in the name what the value of our work is, and it's the relationship component, and AI is not going to replace that part. And so if you've prioritized the right things in your organization, you shouldn't have cause for worry, because really it's constant relationship building with reporters, with conference organizer, with, clients and prospect. And so my day is filled with building authentic, meaningful relationship with people.
I love it. It should probably not be public relations. It should be personal relationships. You can
That's
reframe
right.
the PR.
That's right.
So if you're if I am a driven leader, I have this mission, I have this purpose, and I come to you and I say, hey, I can't quite get this visibility. I can't quite get what I need. What's the first step that you would tell them to do?
So a lot of people come to us and think, that it needs to start with the message. And I think most people get that step wrong. And that's why they can't get the visibility, because they know what they want to say. And so they start with the message. And if you don't know who you're talking to, you can craft a powerful message. And then if you don't know what your end goal is, you cannot define your audience. So I always take 2 steps back when we have those conversations. It's like, okay, why do you want to do PR? Like, it's visibility, but not visibility for the sake of visibility. Do you want to, influence policymaker around changing at the local or federal legislature around the topic that you have? Is it education for the end consumer for the purpose of behavior change? Is it increased sales? And if so, within which demographic are we talking to? So you have to dive deep into the why you want to do PR. And then from the why, you're like, okay, who's going to get you there? And once you have your audience segmentation, it's like, okay, now you can craft the message. Because even though we already have a broad idea of what the message is, because, your organization has a mission statement and you do what you do, you have to present it in a way that will resonate with the target audience. And so I think that a lot of people in the mission space tend to overlook those first 2 steps, and that's why they're not getting the result that they're hoping.
So if I came to you and I understood that, we did all that work, my next question is, can I still have a purpose-driven business and be profitable? What's your answer?
Of course. And I do think that the future will lead to more resiliency. Even on the nonprofit side, we see that shift, which I think is for the better, where they set up for-profit arm, consulting arm, relying on one of the nation is so unstable for organization, their teams, that I see, I think that profit is a wonderful thing. I have a for-profit company myself, and without profit, we don't pay employees. We don't, there's no companies to speak of. So I think that I like to frame, again, profit from the standpoint of fuel. I don't think profit is an end in itself. I think too many organizations, and those are not our, clients, but tend to see profit as the end road. And so for us, we work best with people who see profit as the fuel to something bigger.
I like that. Yeah. And I agree.
Successful.
Yeah. And I think that's important for people to hear, though, that you can have a purpose-driven, profitable business. We did our mastermind as a purposeful mastermind, and then went, well, why wouldn't we be profitable too? And
that's right. And usually those organizations are more profitable because their ability to attract and retain talent is higher. Their customer loyalty is through the roof. And so usually mission-driven companies tend to be more successful than those that are not. So I don't think you have to choose between purpose and profit. They actually go hand in hand in my mind.
And so if I hear you right, you're saying that also right now, besides trust, we as a business owner can also dig deep into the purpose to help elevate, I use that word intentionally, elevate our business. Is that, am I saying that or paraphrasing that correctly?
Right. And I love how, several of our clients are really tackling on the for-profit side, from clean tech to health, wellness, helping people, heal, feel better, heal our planet. And they are incredibly successful because they have come up with a genuine solution to actually a real problem. And so, again, I don't think that there is a need to choose. And I do believe that I'm a big proponent for capitalism. I think that's yet to be the best tool we have invented to capture human ingenuity at scale. But I like to view a more restorative type of capitalism where all the stakeholders win in the equation, including recipient community, including our employees, including, the earth we have inherited.
That's beautiful. I love it. So I'm going to go into some rapid questions quickly here in a second. But first, I want to make sure that you get a chance to tell people how to get a hold of you and what the best way is to just kind of hear and maybe get and find out if you'd be a great person to help them grow their company and build their earned media and their reputation and trust.
Absolutely. Well, our website is elevia.agency, and the best way to contact me is typically on LinkedIn. That's the one social media platform I tend to be the most active on.
I love it. Those are my two favorite too. Yeah. And I will put this in the show notes as well for everybody. So, question, I don't know if I know the answer to this one, but I think I do. But what's the book you most recommend to leaders right now?
Okay. We've talked about, there's a few that we've talked about in our group, but the one I go back to once a year is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and which is a play on word on, the art of war. And it's about overcoming resistance. And I think we all come, especially as entrepreneurs where, we establish our own KPIs. We, sometimes we lose some of our fire, or we're kind of like in a funk. And that book always helps me overcome my own resistance.
Good. What's one word that describes how you lead?
Compassion.
What's a guilty pleasure?
Candy.
Any specific candy?
Sour candy. French sour.
French sour candy. All right. And then the last one is just, what did I not ask you that you'd like to share with our community?
Well, I think that we're both very passionate about what we do at home, but I know that it's also a priority for you. Is that I think we bring the whole selves to our workplace, and so for me, my family is really what is the center of my world. And so my husband, my son, and creating a beautiful life in Atlanta for us three is really what is the highlight of my life.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it. That's beautiful. So you're in Atlanta. You have Olivia, a PR firm, and we will connect it in the show notes. And we are so glad that you decided to come across the pond from France and grace your presence here in the United States and share capitalism and profitable purpose with us. I really appreciate you and your time, and we will see you soon.
Thank you for having me.